Hey everybody, Adam Savage at New York Comic Con. I'm in the Javits Center, but more importantly, I'm standing next to Jenna in an incredible costume. Oh my goodness, it's really, really beautiful. You are Azula?
Yes.
But this is your interpretation.
So it's not quite my interpretation, but what they sometimes will do with different characters, I love the character of Azula. She's such an interesting villain that they really get to portray and really poke around, and she's kind of goes into such interesting arc, and sometimes different artists will draw different interpretations of her design. So this is actually a design by an artist named Hannah Alexander.
Okay.
And I like to kind of imagine this as, what if a different version of the show where she became the Fire Lord?
I love that. I love that mashup of just like, you love this part, you love that part, I want to bring them together. So tell me about this costume. Tell me about the process of putting it together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I made this a little bit ago, and essentially, when I like to build cosplays, my favorite thing to do is to just learn about new stuff and figure out what I can do. So a lot of this was brand new. I've never done it before. I'll do a ton of research and just figure it out. So a lot of things, like working through, and I made a corset for the first time, which I had never done before. Wow. Thank God for online tutorials. Everyone who makes them is a godsend. Doing some ombre dyeing, where you start in the fabric originally was this red color at the very bottom, and then slowly applying different dyes to the silk so it stays darker as you get up towards the top to kind of blend in.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. Tell me more. That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's very delicate to try to go through and work on. So I by no means am an expert in this. It's a lot of just experimentation. So it's a lot of science project work, but being able to kind of go through, and it's just essentially just slowly being able to kind of keep the fabric even and put it into the dye pot, and you kind of just monitor
and so you're doing it
through.
In successively shallower layers, but darker colors.
So the darker parts of the top of my skirt went in first into the dye pot, and then you just kind of move it through from there, so you're able to kind of create that gradient. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, so it's one dark color and you're slowly pulling it out?
You're slowly putting it in. So that way the piece at the top of my waist is actually sat in the dye for the longest amount of time, so it's had the time to absorb the most color.
That sounds terrifying. Did you do that after you sewed the skirt?
So I did. You don't always have to do that, but for me, because I was matching all the different seams together, it was really important. Yeah. And that leads to my other fun thing, is this is the first time I ever worked with silks.
Oh my gosh.
And so I sewed them, the way I always sew fabric, and then I touched them and I tried it and I put it on and it disintegrated. I was like, oh, because silk frays so much more, and I didn't realize you have to reinforce the fabric, especially when you're putting it in a dye bath, which is hot and aggressive and at agitated temperatures. So fun things you learn. I was like, all right, meet my new friend, the zigzag stitch on your machine. That's what that's for. So
you go into silk and you think it's just like any other cloth, and it has all these other properties.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, is there's always so much more to learn and figure out. So working with this was a lot of difficult fabrics. So I I have the thing where I love to this looks cool. I have no idea how I'll make it work, but it looks cool. So working with velvet for the first time was also a time, because it just sort of puffs everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always know when you work with velvet, because it will stay with you, much like glitter.
Like glitter is one of the herpes of crafting, yes.
The glitter, the fabric, the herpes of fabric.
Tell me about the corset, because I'm curious, did you have help when you were trying it on? Because I have a hard time imagining someone building a corset and putting it on repeatedly.
Yeah, so when you build these through, what I typically do is sort of work with a mock-up. So it is helpful to have a friend. I typically live alone. When I craft, I do it all by myself. So it's a lot of very careful work of being able to practice and put things on, having a dress form to sort of help pin things to.
Sure.
Also incredibly useful, but it's really just a lot of trial and error, and I think it's always helpful to be mindful of when they build things like the commercial patterns, is that everyone's body is going to be shaped a little bit differently, and it's also how comfortable you want it to be. So I didn't build this so I had this itty bitty teeny tiny waist, but it's there because it's nice for the support of the garment. So
I'm curious about something like your collar sits really beautifully right there. And I know because I also work a lot alone without help, that sometimes it's really hard to see how something will fall on me. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the mock-up is sort of your best friend. So every time I make something, the most important thing for me is always the maneuverability. Am I going to be comfortable in it? Because I've made things before and you're like, I'm perfect. And now I don't move. Everyone please come to me. Thank you. I will be here. Just put me on wheels and roll me. So you have to be able to move and breathe in fabric. So I feel like being able to have that, and with neck pieces in particular, I find it's that delicate balance of how high do you actually need the collar to be? Because if you put it up too high, then suddenly you're playing this game where you're just constantly poking yourself, trying to work through on some of those pieces. Versus if you cut it just a little bit, it gives the illusion of that. So kind of being able to modify from a design, if you will, especially because when they draw, artists will have their own interpretation. Sometimes they'll draw this really fantastically high collar, and you're like, okay, but my neck is like a third of that size.
It has to interpret to work with the body that is being offered.
Yes.
Did you do your own embroidery here?
Oh yeah, so yeah, my favorite thing to do on this, I figured out when making this costume, was beadwork. So I had never had a chance to work with beads. And so my favorite thing in this costume is definitely these little beads. Oh yeah, so we made these little dragons. So there's one over here on the side.
It's an actual, oh my gosh.
It is an actual dragon. So these were my first time working with little tiny seed beads. So they're up on my collar and they're also there through on the sleeve.
And you're sitting there with a needle and thread.
With a needle and thread, I individually put all of these itty bitty little beads on. And you had to be careful because normally when I do things like beadwork, like on these guys, it was fine if it was a little bit messy underneath because it's fine. You don't see it behind the fabric. You can see both sides here in this
There's
in this
nowhere
mesh.
to hide.
So, yeah, really nowhere to hide those mistakes. So I actually worked on most of this sleeve while I was on a business trip. I was flying back and forth to London. And so I literally just had them out and was sitting there beading into, like, on the flight. I think the people next to me were just like, I don't know what's going on here, but you know, just leave you to it, that's fine. So, you know, it's just nice to have that quiet time just to sit there and think, but it is, you know, little tiny meticulous things, but it's fun to kind of slowly build and watch this picture come together.
The sleeves are incredible. That is, I had no idea you hand did that. Okay, I want to talk about your wig.
Yeah.
Because it looks to me like you took great care to get it precise. And I see old manners, wigs are hard.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Wigs are really hard. And tell me about how this came
Yeah, so with Azula, when I thought about her, there's a couple of things that really stood out to me with her. One is her pretty iconic, like, little widow's peak that she's got going. Yep. And a lot of traditional wigs, you tend to wear them and they just kind of go on the top of your head, and you typically have like kind of a bang or something there, so they just kind of stay on with elastic and prayer and a lot of bobby pins. But when you want a specific hairline, you have to use this lace front. So therefore, it's this little piece you have to kind of glue on and get that into place. So a lot of what I did on this wig was I bought one that they sell in the store, and it was a very severe widow's peak, a little bit more like Raven from Teen Titans. So you had that very severe piece. So what you can do is it's all just little individual hairs that are hand tied. So with ventilation, so I essentially replucked my own hairline, kind of like you do with your eyebrows, to get it to be a little bit less aggressively, I am here. And then working through that, and then I also went through and on the back of it went to do and re-wefted it. So because a lot of times with an updo, the wig fibers aren't made to go that way. They lay flat. So when you pull it up, it's like it's like pulling, like, you know, screech on the tires. And that's not the way that's supposed to go. So you have to kind of flip things around and move that over.
The attention to detail is inspiring. In the illustration you were following, is the eye makeup part of that, or was that you just trying to bring it all together?
It's definitely a little bit of the part of that. So it's one thing of a combination of with where we are right now, what the world is I don't have a lot of opportunities to wear a lot of makeup. So when I was here and I'm in this costume, I'm like, well, you might as well go all out because it's what kind of sticks out and it's bright. And she's so fiery and colorful, and I like the fact that you get to kind of play with a lot of those colors, because more people can, but I don't tend to go outside in this, you know, full big ta-da, look at me makeup.
The mask.
Yeah.
Now, we're all putting masks with our costumes, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's fine. But it really feels like if Azula had to wear a mask, that's her mask.
Well, it was fun because when you're thinking about it, trying to look through all the details. So I had actually sewn this corset a while ago. So trying to find the right fabrics and things that I had, I was a little bit of like, oh gosh, what do I have that I can remake this mask for? Because when I made her, it wasn't mask season, so to speak. So now I was kind of just running through my trim, and I found this, and I love just a little bit more texture and a little bit of ways to have fun. And what I love about, you know, cosplaying with masks on is it's kind of one more thing you get to add in to kind of show who the character is, as well as like who you are as a person and a cosplayer.
I really appreciate that idea about it, because I think that a lot of people are like, oh, I got to add this to my costume. But I mean, the way the decoration works above your nose, it almost is like a fanged mouth. Like there's a villainous aspect to the mask.
Maybe just a little bit.
Jenna, this is so amazing. Do you have a different feeling when you watch Azula on the show now?
Oh, goodness. There's definitely a little bit of that. I love being in Azula because, one, the reactions you get when you do like characters, and just being a villain is so fun because you can sort of just be a little smirk, a little, you know, layover, a little hi. It's just fun to kind of embody that character. And obviously the lines and the, you know, she's very iconic. It makes me always at some point, it's like, man, I wish these hair like grew back so you could do like that thing where she cuts her bangs off and kind of goes off the deep end. Slight spoilers for Avatar, sorry. But it's always really fun to get to do that and sort of play with who the character is and how you interpret her.
Can you show us one of your Azula poses?
Oh goodness, we can try. I can make an attempt. They're not particularly dynamic. I usually will try to do some like fire bending, but it's very difficult. But fortunately, we have some moves in here for the piece, so you can kind of go through and channel that lightning up in and through.
Jenna, amazing work. It's really inspiring. Thank you so much for walking me through it.
Thank you so much.
Incredible.
All right. Yes.
Have a great con.
You as well.